Okay, so in this part, we are going to be concluding this tutorial on how to connect an Android device to an Arduino Bluetooth. So far, we've already covered how to select your Arduino device inside the Android app to connect, and now we're going to actually deal with physically pairing with that device and sending commands to the device. So what we have so far is we have a control activity. So this is going to be the page we do all the coding on. The only other thing we need is a layout so we can actually interact with the app to get the code to run. So what we need to do is create a new XML layout file. So inside the res folder, inside layouts, create a new layout resource file. And we're going to just call it control layout. And we're going to make the root element a constraints layout. And we're going to click OK. So that's now been generated. And all we are needing are 3 buttons. So inside the text view. So all we're going to need to do is very simply create 3 buttons with the height and width of wrap content. So the first one is going to be for turning on an LED. So this is for turning on the LED. So it's going to be control LED on. And we're going to set the constraints. So constrain left to the left of parent and right to the right of parent. Okay, we're then going to copy and paste this 2 times just to save us some time. So the second button is going to be for off, and the third one is going to be to disconnect. Okay, so now all we've got to do is just set the last constraints. So constrain the top of the second button. No, constrain top to the bottom of ID control LED on. And copy that. Off. So that's then 3 buttons. And then what we're going to do is then go to the strings directory. We just need to create 3 new strings. So string name equals on, and then that's going to be on. Copy that. 1, 2. I need off. Disconnect. Off. There we go. Those are the only 3 strings that we need. So then go back to the layout. We then just want to set the text. So text equals disconnect. Text equals off. And text equals on. Okay. And then want to go, and that's then our layout done. Just 3 buttons, and that's it. The only thing we will have to do is go into the manifest and actually add this activity into the manifest. So to do that, in the manifest, you just do a type activity. And the name is going to be the control activity. And the only other thing we then want to do is close it and give it and set the screen orientation. So Android screen orientation equals portrait. And that's it. So that's in the manifest now dealt with for good. So we don't need that anymore. Also don't need the Gradle open. Neither do we need the strings or anything else. So with the control activity. So now we're just going to be working on the control activity. So first we want to get the state sorted out. So what we would need are the variables and the functions. So we're going to first start by defining the functions. So we'll need the onCreate, which is already there for us. We need a function called sendCommand. So private function send command. And this requires you to pass in data to it. So what this function will do is that when this function is called, it will actually send a command to. It will send data to the Arduino via Bluetooth, and depending on what data is sent is what we pass in. So for this, we'll need to send. I'm going to pass in a variable called using a passable input called input. It's going to be of type string. Okay. Then need another function called disconnect. And this is called whenever the disconnect button is clicked. And then the last thing we need is an inner class. Private class connect to device. So this class is initialized when we attempt to connect to the Bluetooth. So we need to pass in, so it requires a context to be passed in to work. And it's going to be extending the object async task. Async task. So, and the parameters of the async task are going to be a void, and a string. As you can see, the context has been highlighted red, so we need to make sure it's imported. So when it's highlighted and it prompts us, we do Alt-Enter to import it. You can see it here. Now you can see that the class now that we can see this class has actually been red underlined. That's because it doesn't implement the functions that it needs to run. So what we need to do is provide those functions. So it's an override function on pre-execute. Calling super.preexecute, so it runs all the other functions and all the other code it needs to on pre-execute. Override function do in background with an optional type of string, so it can return null if it needs to. And the last one, override on post-execute. So those are the main function. Those are the override functions that we need for this class, but we also need a constructor for this class. So to create the constructor in Kotlin, the way you do that is call init, open parenthesis, open curly braces, and then we do whatever we need to do inside the constructor. So in this case, what we need is we also need some member variables. So we would have a private variable connect success, which is of type Boolean, to equal true. And we need a private value context, which is of type context. And then the last thing we need to do, because this is complaining the fact it's not that it needs to be initialized, is that we initialize it inside the constructor like this. Do this dot context will equal C. C being what we passed in. Okay. And the only other thing we then need to do is create the member variables for this page to work. So because we have an inner class and all these member variables are going to be accessed inside the inner class, we need to make them companion objects. So I explained that in a previous video on what a companion object is, but short answer is that a companion object variable is able to be accessed, is able to be used in other classes, which is where we need it to be done here. So we go companion object, and then we create our variables. So var m underscore my UUID, which is of type UUID, equal UUID dot from string, and then the name is just going to be a UUID. So I have one here. So that's the UUID I'm using. Then want to create a Bluetooth socket. So the Bluetooth socket is what we use to actually send the data to the Bluetooth device that we're connected to. So to do that, we do var m underscore tooth socket, to be a optional Bluetooth socket, so that it can be that there is a chance it might be null. And we also need to ensure that it's imported. So eventually it will ask. If it doesn't, then we can do it ourselves, do it manually by doing import Android.BluetoothSocket. We then want to create a progress dialog. So it's a late init var m underscore progress, which is of type progress dialog. Now, as you can see here, it's actually got a line through it. What that means is that this is actually deprecated in Java. However, due to the fact that this is just an example, this is just a tutorial, we're going to use it instead of actually creating something a lot more like in-depth and complicated, since that isn't the focus. But for our purposes, it will do the job. So we also need a late init var Bluetooth adapter m underscore Bluetooth adapter. Just type Bluetooth adapter, and then we need to do a var m underscore is connected, which is a type Boolean false. So what this member variable is for is basically to know on whether we are actually currently connected or not. And the last one we need is a late init var m underscore address, so we have type string. And that is then our state setup. So as you can see, all of these are actually currently grey underlined, and that's because they're not actually being used right now. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through and actually write out the code that they're all being used. As a side note, you can see that we've actually got a compiler warning here on this variable here. That's because it's complaining about memory leaks, a field leak. So this you actually don't have to worry about because there's actually no other way of doing it other than this. So, and because we need the context in order to do certain functions, that's how we have to do it. However, there isn't actually a serious problem with doing it this way. This is actually one of the better ways of trying to do what we're trying to do. So I'm going to first deal with the onCreate. So what we want to do is we want to set the content view. So to r.layout.control layout. So this will set the UI. And then what we want to do is we want to get the MAC address from the extras that we had set in the previous in the previous video on the select device activity. So to do that, we do m_address equals intent.get string extra, and because we've actually assigned the address to the key that we defined on the control activity, the way that we'd access that is by doing select device activity dot extra address. This way we know for a fact that we will be getting the right value from the extras. What we then need to do is call the subclass connector device, passing in this. So this activity's context dot execute. Okay, and the last thing we need to do is set up our on-click listeners. So we have control LED on dot set on-click listener, and we want to call send command. And in our Arduino code, in the Arduino code that I will have linked in the description, we have it set up so that the LED is turned on when it receives the input A. So turn it on, we need to pass in A. We then have set up the other on-click listeners. So to do that quite easily, we just do a copy and paste. So got off and disconnect. So in the send command for turning it off, to turn off the LED, it will require a B. Okay, and then to disconnect, instead of calling send command, we would need to call disconnect. Okay, so now we have the onCreate written. What we're next going to do is the send command function. So it's a very simple function. All we're going to do is check to see if the Bluetooth socket is null. So if m_Bluetooth_socket is not equal to null, then we're going to do a try. Then we're going to do a try catch. So try m_Bluetooth_socket is not null at this point. Dot output stream dot write. So we're actually going to write to the transmitter. So it can transmit. So it'll transmit data. Input. So the thing we just passed in, and then we're going to send it as a byte array to byte array, like that. If that fails, we're going to do a catch to be E as an IO exception. Then what we're going to do is e.print stack trace, so we can see why it failed. And then that's the send command finished. Our next function is then the disconnect function. So what we're going to do is check to see if the Bluetooth socket is null, underscore the Bluetooth socket is not equal to null. So if it is not null, then it will close the socket. So we know it's not null. Dot close. So that closes the connection. We're then going to nullify it. Bluetooth socket to equal null. And then we're going to set the variable m underscore is connected to equal false, so that the page knows that we have disconnected. And all of this is going to be inside a try catch. And the catch is going to be an IO exception. What it will do is very simply e.print stack trace just to see on why it has failed. And after all of that, we're then going to call finish. So what that does is then closes the page and then goes back to the select device activity. So that's now the main class is now done. We're now going to deal with the async task. So this is the class that actually deals with connecting to the Bluetooth device. So we've already got the constructor written. So what we're going to do is on the pre-execute, we're going to set m underscore progress to equal progress dialog.show. So with the context, we're going to pass in context. The title is going to be connecting. So this is basically going to what our user is going to see while it's performing the async task. Then we're going to call, and then the message is going to be simply, please wait. So what we're then going to do in the background is inside of try catch, the IO exception e.print stack trace. So inside the try, what we're going to do is check to see if the Bluetooth socket is null or if we are not connected. So if m underscore is connected is equal to null, which is shortened to not is connected. So if any of those return true, then we're going to set the Bluetooth adapter to equal Bluetooth adapter.getDefaultAdapter. And then we're going to get the device. So we're going to create a variable called device, which is of type Bluetooth device, which will equal m underscore Bluetooth adapter dot get remote device. So this will get the specific device that we have selected using the MAC address that we had got from the intent. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set up the socket. So m underscore Bluetooth socket will be the device dot, and we want to create an insecure RFCOM socket service record using our UID. M underscore my UID. So what this does is then sets up the connection between our phone and the Bluetooth device we want to connect to. What we then need to do is then call BluetoothAdapter, like that, .get default adapter, .cancel discovery. So what this does is that it basically stops the app from looking for other devices to try and connect to, thereby saving basically saving battery and saving resources. And then the last thing we need to do inside this try, sort of, is m_BluetoothSocket, which we know isn't null because we've just assigned it, .connect. And that will then connect us. So on the then the last thing we need to do is that inside the catch, we need to set connect success to equal false. And at the end of all of that, we then need to have a return statement. So return null. Okay. So now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do in the post execute is that if not connect success. So if the connection failed, then we want to do log.i data. I'll enter so that we have that. And then the message is going to be couldn't connect. I forgot the comma. Once we've logged that we couldn't connect, we're going to do an else to the if. So if we have connected, we want to do m_is connected equals true. Then after everything else, we want to dismiss the progress dialog. So m_progress .dismiss. And if we have written this correctly, this will allow us to connect to an Arduino and control an LED. So to test this app, you'll want to plug in your Android device. So which I will do now. So you plug in your device that you want to run it on. Make sure that your device is in developer mode. Then you want to run the app by pressing this big green button. This will bring up your ADB, allow you to select the deployment type. Make sure you have allowing the fact you can do USB debugging. And then select it, and then that will start running on the app. And then just let it load and build.
Okay, so here I have my device that has the app installed, and I have an Arduino test board that has a Bluetooth module plugged into it, as well as it's also hooked up to an LED, so that when it will receive data through Bluetooth, it will toggle the light on and off. So if we open up the Bluetooth app, over here, we click on the refresh button, you can see that we have the MAC address because we have the device paired. If you don't see that, then to pair it, you'd go into your settings, you would go to Bluetooth, and then you would search for a device. So the Bluetooth device is called HC06. As you can see, I've already paired it. There are also other available devices here, but I don't want to pair those. So if we go back to the app, we then click on that device. You can see it then attempts to connect. It has successfully connected. So then if I click on, the light comes on. If I click off, it goes off again. On, off, on, off. a point to anyone who can guess what that said in Morse code. So I then disconnect, and then that has disconnected. So while the Bluetooth module hasn't got anything connected to it, you can see that it is blinking. Then when I connect something, it then goes solid. That means that it has a connection. So that is how you create a Kotlin app that can interface with a Bluetooth device. I hope you have found this tutorial interesting and useful. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. And make sure you remember to like and subscribe to the channel. All the source code is going to be uploaded to GitHub, so if you would like to download it, you are able to do that and tweak it. And yeah, I hope we'll look forward to seeing the next one.